Hi guys, the other day I posted an unboxing video of my X1 Gen 2 brand new laptop. Since then I've received a couple of different comments questioning certain aspects of the laptop, display, sound quality, battery life. So I wanted to post my initial review of the laptop today, just to let you know, after having it for 36 hours, what do I think of it, what do I think of the different aspects of the computer, and whether or not you might want to buy this laptop, especially shelling out how much Lenovo is currently asking for it. To start, let's just recap the specs on this laptop that I have here in front of me. I have an i7-9750H processor in it. It's running Windows 10 Pro. I've got the dual 8GB sticks of RAM, DDR4 2666 MHz, 512GB solid state drive. This is the 15-inch Full HD 1080p display, 500 nits, IPS screen, anti-glare, with the HDR 400 Dolby Vision built into it. It's got a GTX 1650 Max-Q dedicated graphics card in it, so it also has the Intel HD 630 in it, so you could use either one, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. It also has a built-in fingerprint reader. It's of course got the standard Thinkpad keyboard, which is awesome. The keyboard can be backlit if you want it to be. It's got a 80 watt-hour battery built into it. It comes with a 135 watt AC charger. It's got the AX200 Wi-Fi 6 wireless card in it, which supports 802.11ax for anybody who's keeping track of the new protocols. And I happened to purchase the 1 year on-site warranty for this, but by default it would come with the depot warranty, which is you'd send in your laptop and get it back in a couple of weeks after they fix it, if anything were to go wrong. So let's get the first thing out of the way, which everybody is thinking about for a ThinkPad. How's the keyboard? And as you would expect, the keyboard is pretty awesome. Now, I myself am a programmer, so I also like to use a numpad, which this does not have on it. I can live with that because the travel on these keys is amazing. The click on them is amazing. I mean, almost any other laptop that you use is going to have a chiclet style keyboard, and this one, these keys are they're awesome. I don't know how much you can hear that, but it feels really nice. Now, in addition, the ThinkPad keyboards also come with their stylistic nub stylus, if you like that. This also comes with a standard trackpad, which has built-in buttons right in the trackpad. It also has these buttons here, which can be used in addition with the nub or with the trackpad if you like that kind of thing. I feel that the trackpad on this is very responsive. It works exactly like how I would intend it to. And while I bought this initially thinking I was going to be using the nub quite a bit, I'm actually using the trackpad quite a bit, which, I mean, I like it, so it's pretty awesome. One of the things to note on this keyboard though is the function key is built in the bottom left-hand corner, which that's by standard where my pinky wants to go for the control key, especially with things like Control W, Control S, Control V, all that kind of things. So it's very difficult at first to get used to that. Now Lenovo provides a way through their software, which is called Lenovo Advantage, to flip the control and function keys within the software. If you were to do that, then the function key essentially acts as the control key and the control key becomes your function key. So I've done that on my keyboard, so I can use this key as control, which to me just feels a lot better. If somebody were to look at the keyboard, they wouldn't know it, but that's definitely a highlight for me, the fact that they give you that ability to swap those keys if you want to. I can also talk a little bit about the fingerprint sensor, which is right here on the laptop. Now I find that this fingerprint sensor is very nice because it's not one of the kind where you have to swipe or do anything like that. You just put your finger over the fingerprint sensor and it'll unlock Windows for you or unlock whatever application you're using. It took a few tries obviously to get the fingerprint completely into the computer, but Windows allows you to add multiple fingers as readable fingers inside of Windows, so that wasn't a problem for me. I added both my index fingers on my left and right hand, just depending on what I'm going to be doing that day. But it unlocks within about 2 seconds. And like I said, because you don't have to swipe, you don't get any type of smudges along your computer or anything like that. You just hold your finger over the fingerprint sensor and it unlocks it for you. So that's very nice. It's also in a pretty standard location. I feel like if you were using a mouse or something in addition with this laptop, you would already have your hand over here if you're a righty, and it's very easy to just touch, unlock, and then keep going. Next, let's talk about the display on this. So this happens to be the 1080p screen, Full HD 500 nits IPS display with the HDR 400 built in. Now right now the display is running at its full max brightness. If I were to turn it down, you can see it gets pretty dark if you wanted to. Maybe in really low light situations you might want that. Frankly, after looking at the 500 nit screen like all day long, as soon as you turn it down one brightness, you're like, man, that seems really dark. But comparing it to other laptops, it actually isn't that bad. It's just when you look at how bright this thing can get at max brightness, and then you try turning it down a notch, yeah, it's definitely noticeable. The screen is really bright, and I really like it, although I feel like staring at it all day, unless you're outside in the sun, it's kind of unnecessary, and it does drain a considerable amount of your battery. So I'd recommend at least knocking it down 1 or 2 notches from max brightness, unless you have it on AC or if you have it plugged into a docking station. Otherwise, you know, you can leave it turned up all the way if you want to. So here you can see the video quality of the camera as the laptop is taking it. This is also the sound that's coming out of the laptop right now, being picked up by the microphones. You can see that there is kind of a softness to the video, and even the sound. It sounds kind of like as if you were talking to somebody over Skype. There's nothing spectacular about any of it. Overall, I wouldn't use it for too much, you know, unless you really needed to take a video of something in a jam. The nice thing about these laptops is you can fold the display all the way back. So if you wanted to hold it straight up, kind of like it was a camera, you could do that. But honestly, everybody has a smartphone these days, and this is kind of on par with the mid-tier or even lower tier cameras found in smartphones. So your smartphone's going to do just as good of a job and be a lot easier to share out if you really needed to do something, you know, on the go. Next up is sound. So on this particular laptop, the sound comes out of speaker grills, which are on either side of the laptop. If you take a look here, they fire out of these little speaker grills that they're on each side of the laptop. It's nice because you do get the stereo sound, although it's not great, guys. The other day I had it hooked up and was playing some videos on my rug in my living room, and the sound quality was so dampened just from coming out the sides of that it sounded really muffled, really as though you were underwater. It did not sound great. Now, you know, my wife has the Thinkpad X1 Carbon Gen 7, which is the brand new version of that, and on those ones they happen to put the sound bar at the top above the keyboard underneath the display. Now that's really nice, and I have another laptop that has a similar style to that, and it's right up here. Now that's really nice because nothing is going to get in the way unless you put something on top of it to muffle that sound as it comes out. And on this one, I mean, if you're buying it, it's probably more for productivity than for a full multimedia experience, but that's kind of a missed opportunity for Lenovo to put the speakers up there too, to really give you a full experience, being able, with their really nice displays, really nice keyboard. Just the sound on this doesn't really do it for me. Now I'm going to be using headphones most of the time, I think, with this anyways while I'm doing my work, but I mean, that might be something to think about if you're thinking of using this more for entertainment purposes than anything else. So next up, let's talk about battery life. So battery life on this, you know, Lenovo had said, okay, you should be able to get about 11 hours out of this, you know, up to 11 hours. Yeah, you can, as long as you turn basically everything off. So you set the battery mode all the way down to the lowest setting. You set your brightness all the way down to the lowest setting. In my experience, on 100% charge on this laptop, that bumped up the time that Windows was reporting until the battery was depleted to be about 10 hours. Obviously, all of this is going to be dependent on your situation. However, for me, I'm probably going to have the display, you know, like I said, a couple notches below the max. And when I'm working on it, I probably don't need to have it at max performance if I'm on battery, but I'm going to have it somewhere in the middle. It's not going to be on full battery saver mode. And when I've experimented with the different arrangements of battery saving mode, I usually get about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours of time that Windows is reporting, which, I mean, that's still pretty good in my opinion, because my other laptop that I have, even in max battery mode, I get maybe an hour and a half out of it before it dies. And that's no good if you're trying to be productive. Now this gives me, maybe about 4 hours of actual usage, which is pretty nice. Another thing too, with this particular model, I alluded to it earlier, but this has both the Intel 630 HD GPU built into it, along with a dedicated GPU, which is that NVIDIA 1650 Max-Q. With the ThinkPad laptops, you have the ability to switch it between two different modes. If you go into the BIOS, you can either switch it to a dedicated graphics mode, where Windows will constantly use the dedicated graphics card in it, in this case the 1650, or you can set it up into a hybrid mode. And the hybrid mode allows you to use your Intel GPU, which is going to be far more efficient with battery life, until the computer needs to use the dedicated GPU for something, say video games or 3D rendering or whatever it is that you're working on. By default, my computer was set up to use the hybrid mode, and I was still getting that 4 hours roughly. When I switched over to dedicated graphics mode, Windows was reporting with max brightness and high performance mode, 100% battery life, it was reporting about 2.5 hours. So obviously it completely depends on what you're doing. If you're viewing anything WebGL, or you're doing any type of video decoding or anything like that on your computer, it's all going to be dependent on how much you're doing there and what your battery life is going to look like. But expect it, if you're buying this with the intention of always using that dedicated GPU that's built into it, if you're planning on using that with that on, that your battery life is going to be dramatically reduced if you're running off battery life. So it's up to you. I personally think that the trade-off for this, having that dedicated GPU, being able to play games, at 1080p, 60 frames per second, anti-aliasing on, all that stuff, I think it's worth it, especially because I'm planning on doing a little bit of like Unity programming on here, things like that. The 3D capabilities of this are really going to be nice. So I'll take that trade-off, 4 hours of battery life, to have that dedicated GPU. But with a dedicated GPU, there also comes heat. And with the heat, the fans do kick on from time to time, depending on what you're doing. They're not exactly quiet, so you can expect the fans to kick on too. If you were looking for a whisper quiet operation, this computer does not do that. So overall, am I happy with this laptop? Absolutely. I love the keyboard. I love the display. That IPS panel looks great on here. The 500 nits is nice and bright. Everything about this computer is just awesome. It's a step up from the old computer that I was using, which was a Acer Aspire A3 from like 5 years ago. So that's my opinion, guys. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Otherwise, I'll see you later.